So my name is Marc, head of core product at World First, which is a foreign exchange business based in London, but we also have offices in Hong Kong and in the States and in the Netherlands. I've been a product manager for about 7 years now, just wrecking my brains here. But started my professional life as a corporate lawyer back in the Netherlands, where I'm from originally. And I've been quite a journey to become a product manager since. Halfway through being a lawyer, I realized I just always felt I was a bit late to the party. So it prompted me to do an MBA in the UK. Getting halfway through, I realized if I want to use my MBA, I can't go back into law. So I stayed in professional services, but worked a lot more on the kind of marketing and business development side of things. And that got me interested in digital. The question was, how do I move into digital? So I did a lot of pro bono work, so working particularly with startups, but also with established companies. And that paid off eventually when I got my first role as a project manager, digital project manager working in an agency. But I found that to be quite limiting in some respects. And again, there's nothing wrong with project management per se, but I always felt I was missing an element of creativity, because obviously it's quite constrained. You work on a set budget, you work on a set scope, and you have to deliver it, and that's what you do, and then you move on to the next thing. And that got me excited about product management. We're talking about 2010 here, so a few years back. Let's focus on what I look for when I hire, maybe to make it a bit more concrete. So the first thing I always look for is curiosity, and that sounds really obvious, like, yeah, sure, people are curious, but I want people who are interested in the product, in the customer, happy to try things, happy to learn continuously. So that's a really key trait, looking at what competitors do, really trying to understand the customer, as I said. That's the first thing that I really look for. And it doesn't matter whether you're junior or senior, a lot of experience. I don't care. I want someone who can demonstrate that to me, that they're curious. The other key thing that makes a good product manager is really about being able to make hard decisions. There's a whole debate within the product management world about, are we mini CEOs or are we not? I don't care so much about that debate. For me, a product manager is ultimately accountable for the product performance and what gets built and what doesn't get built. So you have to be able to make tough calls when it comes to, trade-off decisions. Should we go for feature A versus feature B? Should we do this product in the first place? So someone who's decisive, who can make those calls, someone who's entrepreneurial, happy to try things, happy to be iterative and just experiment. I would say those three things, curiosity, being entrepreneurial and being decisive, are three core components that I personally always look out for. At the moment, I feel that product management is still a fairly new discipline in the UK and some other places, particularly in Europe. It's a different story when you speak to my peers in San Fran. But I think we're going down the same path where it will become a lot more established. So that means, and I can see it, when I speak to my peers in San Francisco, for instance, where they're an essential part of the business. I think what I've seen here in the UK in certain cases, because product management as a discipline is still quite new, that you typically get people who are effectively acting more as project managers. So they'll do a lot of execution type stuff. They'll take a requirement from another part of the business and they'll just run with it. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you look at product management and what I see as good product management, going back to your earlier question, I expect that product managers will be much more kind of leaders in their businesses. Again, not at the very minute in lots of cases, but that's how I see that discipline evolving, where they'll be driving effectively the business strategy from a product perspective. They'll making really core decisions as to which market should we be focusing on as a business and which one shouldn't we focus on. For instance, which customer segment is really going to drive the business forward, which one isn't. So as businesses and organizations become more product centric, as a result, product managers will become much more at the forefront of what their businesses do. So product culture to me is a couple of things, but the main thing I would say is it begins and ends with the customer for me. So it's really customer centric. It's no good to say, we're all about creating a great product or service if you don't take into account your customers. Really truly understanding and testing things with customers on an ongoing basis, challenging your own assumptions and hypotheses, that makes for me, a product-centric culture, really thinking about, right, product on one side, but business needs and customer needs on the other side, and how can we marry the two up? So in the past, and to this very day, actually, it's a mix, basically. I've got this toolkit of things that you can do to really start instilling a kind of product culture and what I call a product mindset. And it's typically starting with simple things. So you don't need to have a whole big, 5-day offsite to talk about your product strategy and suddenly the business has become a product-centric company overnight. It's things like something that I call product retrospectives. A monthly product retrospective is all about how's our product performing. So going back to what you released a month ago, let's say, a particular feature, how has that been doing? Has it been living up to expectations? Maybe it's failed. Why has it failed? What are customers saying about it? How are they using it? And that's the kind of thing I do for the whole business. So it's not just for stakeholders who've been involved in the product development lifecycle anyway, but just anyone who wants to come. It's completely voluntary, but it's a nice way, particularly to really spread the word about what we're doing as product managers in a nice, informal, simple kind of way. So that's a very simple thing that you can do, almost as of tomorrow, effectively. Other key things are, bringing customers into the building. There's nothing more powerful, in my humble opinion, as speaking to customers, engaging with customers on a regular basis. If you can't bring them into the building, do it remotely. There's great tools out there that you can use for remote user testing, for instance. Again, a fairly simple thing that you can start doing almost straight away to be more customer-centric, to really understand what their needs and problems are and how they use your product. I think from experiences, there's two things, particularly, with startups, where you've got, a core of people who have got a really clear view of what the product should do, who the customers are, obviously, because it's your baby and you've been working on it so hard and all those hours, and suddenly you get a product person in who is going to drive that product culture. So you get a lot more cooks in the kitchen. You're going to get people who typically have an opinion. In lots of product manager cases, quite a strong opinion, because that's what we do, I guess, who will challenge. So they will ask questions to founders or stakeholders about, why are we doing this? How do you think this is going to work? Who's this for? Questions that might not have been asked previously or not in the same kind of way. Again, these are not by any means meant as showstoppers for hiring product people, but it is something to be aware of. You're going to get more people involved in that product lifecycle and product development process. You're going to bring more opinions to the table, more decisions, more challenges. Again, not the end of the world, but it is something that you need to be mindful of and need to manage carefully. If you want to get there faster, my first advice would be to get a more experienced product person. Doesn't necessarily mean that, you have to have been a product person for the last 15 years. I haven't even met those people yet. But someone who's done it before, basically, and will have the confidence to, going back to your earlier question, try a few things fairly quickly because they know it could work. Things like product retrospectives, and can really take the business on a journey, whether you're a startup or a more established business. So I found in startups, the challenge can sometimes be that you're working with a founder, or, a founder team who are obviously and understandably very close to the product or service that you're selling, and it's almost like you're taking their baby away from them as a product person. So one of the suggestions I'd give there to reduce that initial fear of, there's this new product person coming in to take my baby away, is to really build up that relationship with the CEO or COO, whoever in that kind of, founder team that you're working closely with, and take them on that journey and make it feel like it's make sure it is like a joint exercise. So it's not just, I'm this product manager coming in as the rock star. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your product or what you should be doing or should not be doing, but really work very closely together to take away that fear, make sure that there's an opportunity for not just for the founder, but everyone in the business, because it's likely to be a small setup anyway, to have input in product development and product decisions. So that's the key suggestion I would give there. Now, if you flip that and look at more established businesses where you've already got teams in place who might be a bit fearful of product manager or product team for that matter coming in, because they might think, what does that mean for my role, or do I become redundant? Again, spending a lot of time educating them. So that would be my suggestion, and not in a pedantic kind of way, like I'm going to sit you down, I'm going to tell you what product management is, but having two-way conversations. I've got good experience of doing that, where you explain what product management is, and just as important, what it is not, and using that as a vehicle almost to establish what the roles and responsibilities are and the boundaries are vis-a-vis those in-house, existing teams that might have been in the business for however many years and very well established. So for instance, if I take myself as an example at World First, which again, very successful business, has been around for 13 years, grown rapidly, but they missed that kind of product function. So I was the first product manager effectively to join the business. And, because of my experience and because of having done a similar kind of role previously and similar challenges, I could take the wider business on a journey. So I think the first thing is, whatever your existing role is, if you're already, if you're a business analyst or you're a UX designer, project manager, those are typically places where people come from, I've found. But again, irrespective almost of what your role is, look at what you can already do that's related to developing products, whether it's speaking to customers, whether it's doing opportunity assessments, looking at other markets, for instance, looking at competition, coming up with a product vision, even if it's not asked of you in your day job, but just when you do speak to companies who are looking to hire product people, you can give examples of, well, in my company, this is the product vision I thought of, or this is our product strategy that I put together, or these are the customers I spoke to about our product, and this is what I learned, and this is how I fed it back into the business. Just, it's really showing that kind of interest in being a product person. Forget about, maybe not having been a product manager for 15 years or not necessarily ticking all the boxes, but showing that interest in the customer, in your business, in your competition, in your wider market is really important, I think, if you want to transfer into product management. The other thing, which I mentioned before, which I always recommend, particularly if you think about the many startups that we've got here in the UK and in London in particular, is working on pro bono basis. So I'm sure you've got lots of good skills that you can use, product related, maybe other areas, to say, you know what, I can see you're a starting startup with a few people. Product management is the missing bit. I'm happy to spend a few evenings a week or weekends to help you really get your product up to scratch, to look at your customer experience, to help you speak to customers. Again, this is particularly useful if that's the kind of thing that you can't do necessarily in your day job. And finally, I would obviously, and you'd expect me to say that, is to come to events like a Product Tank, but I know there's loads of other events like it in London out there, where you get a great opportunity to meet with other product people, to see what they do, what their challenges are, and learn from purely just talking to them.